Our next session, the topic is engaging with the Life Sciences and Healthcare Quantum Innovation Lab. Our speakers for this session are Dr. Lara Jehi from Cleveland Clinic and George Thomas from Connected DMV. Please join me in welcoming Lara and George.
Good afternoon, everybody. It seems like I'm back here like every other session today, and I apologize for that. But I'm really, really thrilled to be able to have some time with Dr. Jehi today. We started talking, I don't know, about 3 years ago about this concept. Cleveland Clinic was really moving into the space of using quantum as one of the tools to help fulfill their mission, along with other things in AI and the traditional kind of classical compute type of things. We were in the process at that point of kind of hammering home onto the fact that the user and buyer community needed to be very engaged while things were being built to shorten the process to time to build, but also to provide consistent feedback on what would work and what is valuable versus building something and then going looking for a client. So it was kind of a very good alignment of the minds with regard to both our missions, and then she's just also a wonderful person to work with and talk to. So I've been just thrilled to bits over the last 3 years as we've kind of built out this idea into what's now become the Life Sciences and Healthcare Quantum Innovation Hub. And this was kind of supported after about a year of work by a very nice grant from the US Department of Commerce to help us kind of think through what the process was. And as you know, last year, I think we had a few slides that showed what the structure of it looks like, the 6 stakeholder types that we have, how they work together, and how we envision the hub itself to, at the end of the day, be a risk mitigation tool. So Cleveland's investing a lot of money, resources, time, and there is operational cost, and there is cost that's associated with not doing other things while they're spending this on quantum. And others are similarly exploring various other things. So if an organization like Cleveland Clinic is investing in this technology, my kind of question to her was, how can we help you mitigate that risk? And the mitigation of risk was in these early days of quantum and quantum adjacent. How do you share enough knowledge that is not as competitive, but will help you test the waters that you're not drinking your own Kool-Aid? That's really like a very fundamental essence of what the structure is. And we've been doing tremendous amount of work within that kind of construct with other partners like GSK and Sui Life and Cubic in Australia, and others in that ecosystem to try to figure out how do we collectively help each other to develop something. So that's been kind of like the background of what this is. And the workshop itself that Dr. Jehi led yesterday was kind of one more step in that ecosystem to have a conversation. And Dr. Jehi, if I can pass it over to you, both for an introduction as well as to maybe give us a little detail about the readout from the workshop itself.
Thank you, George. Well, you've been a pleasure to work with too, so that explains it. The workshop yesterday focused on the idea of building an ecosystem in healthcare and life sciences that is built around the idea of quantum technologies supporting healthcare and life sciences, but doing that at a global scale. Like George outlined, that the first year of us doing this, we focused on building capacity internally in Cleveland Clinic with our technology partner, IBM Research, so that we can bring quantum computing and make it a reality for the Cleveland Clinic biomedical researchers. In our organization, we have 400,000 square feet of wet bench research space, close to 1,600 researchers, a bit over $400 million in annual research spend, mostly federal, some industry sponsored. So with that volume of research, which is expected to grow with our Cleveland Innovation District, that's a $500 million investment with the state, and Jobs Ohio, an economic development agency, to create a Cleveland Innovation District anchored around biotechnology. So that investment is on top of what we already have, and we expect with it to increase our volume of researchers and research that's happening at the clinic. So we, of course, needed then to invest in technology. And that was bringing quantum computing along with many other things to our team. So year one was building internally. Year two onwards was natural in the sense that we quickly realized that no matter how much we invest internally, the problem is so big. Actually, it's not, I won't see it as a problem, it's an opportunity really for all of us. It is so big that it can only happen if we work globally with others around similar interests and similar interests that are addressed at multiple levels. I'm sure you can see from the sessions at the QWC that the stakeholder groups are pretty much defined. So we just had a session on education, so workforce development, government agencies, industry that is generating the technology but then also using it, academia, universities doing the research, and development agencies, startups that are innovating. So all of these stakeholder groups we brought yesterday in the context of the workshop. It was attended by over 100 individuals from all over the world, really, who belong, to one of these different groups. We started with a wonderful slate of speakers from the UK. From the UK, we had Josh Feder, who's from their Office of Quantum. There was Sabrina Maniscalco, the CEO of Algorithmic, a startup from Finland. Rui Zhou from IBM Research. And a Dr. Chong from South Korea, Yonsei University, and Dr. Mark Gerstein from Yale, who's doing research. So it was a pretty diverse group. And there was Dr. Lina Odeshede. Lina, if you're here, I didn't mean to forget. So from Novo Nordisk Foundation. And the conversation focused on what does each entity, what are they doing now that is successful? And we all learned from each other. And then there were breakout groups that focused on answering one question, which is what's holding them back now? And why aren't they doing more global collaboration together? And there were a few themes that emerged, no matter where people were coming from. Workforce shortage was an issue that was brought up by many and at multiple levels. Workforce that is feeding into the research, but more importantly, workforce that is at subsequent levels in the chain. So workforce to translate to market, workforce for business development. The second theme that was emerging was around supply chain. And supply chain challenges, particularly in a geopolitical environment that we live in, that is complicating it even further. In a way, it was a good problem to be talking about because at least it means that we're doing things. Last year we had a similar workshop and supply chain didn't even come up. This year, the fact that we're talking about it means that at least we are creating things and there is a queue for what we want to do. The third issue that came up had to do with infrastructure in its more global sense. So infrastructure that technically allows us, say, to share data across the globe, among other things. But also infrastructure from a regulatory perspective that creates a framework that allows us to safely be collaborating and sharing data. Cybersecurity could be thought of under that infrastructure, where in the context of healthcare and life sciences research, we have to, in addition to the usual cyber issues with compute and data exchange, we have to deal with the sensitive nature of healthcare data that has additional protections. Then there was the big challenge of IP, intellectual property. How do we protect it? We want to work together, but then at the same time, each group has their own, no matter who we are, at the end of the day, we have a boss. We have a group that we work for, and we need to protect the interests of the entity that we belong to. So how do we balance IP issues when it comes to global collaborations? So all of those challenges came up. I would like to close with one, the same one that you mentioned at the beginning, which is the end user involvement, the disconnect between collaborations among similar entities, usually who speak the same language. They're comfortable with each other, so then they start working together, but then they're not really challenged to hear a different voice, the voice of the end user that perhaps might sway them in a different direction. So I hope that I'm conveying fairly the conversation that happened yesterday. You have the names of the speakers in the agenda. Please feel free to reach out to them, find them at the meeting. They were all tremendous, and George and I are so grateful to all of them for the discussion.
Yeah, and again, the call to action, I guess, is for anybody else who's interested in getting involved in the general kind of life sciences biotech space with quantum computing primarily. Please contact Dr. Jehi or myself, and we'll work out what we can do to kind of get you involved. There's lots of conversations that happen, lots of actual work, time itself with the researchers at Cleveland Clinic and at the other institutions very specifically. All of that is kind of happening, but it is a big churn. And it is fast moving, if I can represent it. And every week there is something new that's happening that is relevant, a partnership and ecosystem building. And it's many of the same companies and the people that turn up on all our calls, which is just fantastic to see, because those relationships, I believe, are really important to build a level of trust. Yeah. That perhaps will help even alleviate some of the initial discussions on IP and initial discussions on between the organizations. Having those trusted interpersonal relationships is critical. And the one thing I will close out with from my end is tomorrow we are going to make an announcement as part of a larger announcement that Stu's going to do. That's going to be part of the hub. So please come and stay in the early morning, the first session that Stu's going to do. There's going to be an announcement that's made that's part of this hub effort that it is pretty cool. So I would highly encourage you to do that. And I'll close with that, Lara.
Yes. Stay tuned. There's a big announcement coming, and it's we hope a creative way of getting the whole community engaged globally. So thank you.
Thank you all.